Oh. Hey there, Internet. Purple Air Doofus here. Listen, I don't have a lot of time to shoot the shit or whatever, so we're just gonna dive right into it. We're covering Preacher. It's really vulgar. Don't give it to your kids. And read it before I ruin it for you, because right now we're covering chapters 1 through 4, or issues 1 through 4. That's all. It starts with Jess, Cass, and Tulip all in a diner. And they're all kind of discussing how they got back together. And they're all kind of, looking over their menus while they're doing it. And, well, it flashes back to Jesse inciting a bar brawl in his small, quaint little town, because as the preacher, he's supposed to hold in everyone's sins. And he doesn't. He goes through the bar and tells everyone all the dirty things that those people had confessed to him. And, well, not only does it make people hate Jesse, but it makes people hate the people that crossed them. So, a large fight ensues, and he has to leave said town. Then, the comic kind of goes up into heaven, and you see these angels, and they're talking about this escaped deity that just kind of fled heaven, and how they're so afraid of anyone ever finding out. And then we go to Tulip's kind of little backstory, and she is fucking up an assassination attempt. She's supposed to kill this one guy, but she misses, and her shot actually blows the jaw off one of his, henchmen, his little sidekicks. What do I want? Well, as she's running away, she runs into Cass, who is just kind of chilling in his truck. And she says, "You gotta get me out of here." He says, "I don't want to take any strange people in my truck." She points a weapon at him, and he's like, "Come on in!" And that's how they became friends. Let's see. Now, there's also this, kind of a monk-looking dude, and he goes into a Mausoleum, I guess? A graveyard, a giant graveyard area, and he unearths what I could only describe as a Franken cowboy. I mean, this guy looks like 8 feet tall, and he's got the features of a monster, but he's still human. He's just got huge features. It's quite intimidating. Then Jess is giving one of his sermons, because he's a preacher. And as he's giving the sermon, well, the escaped deity possesses him. And he starts kind of freaking out. There's an explosion at his church, and not far away, Tulip and Cass are driving by. And they decide to go to the church and investigate to see what happened. And, as they're looking over the explosion, they find Jesse there. Alive. No one else, just Jesse. And then it flashes back to the diner, and Jesse leaves to smoke a cigarette. And he gets greeted by John Wayne, who's giving him advice. Doesn't tell you where John Wayne came from or what the hell he's doing there, but he gets greeted by him. And then we meet a corrupt sheriff who is investigating the explosion with a bunch of other cops. And Jesse wakes up in the trunk of Cass's car with Tulip watching. And, well, cops chase him down, and they hold him responsible for the explosion, and Jesse uses the word of God on them and tells them to drop their weapons. And all the cops do. And, well, then Franken Cowboy shows up. And that's the end of the first issue. Now, we go on to the second. Now, you see, there's this corrupt sheriff. And he's actually after me, and Cass, and Tulip. And, well, sorry, Preacher Man's gotta eat too. You see, corrupt sheriff is telling these fine cops, giving them a debriefing of what happened. And it kind of flashes to the scene where Franken Cowboy showed up. And Franken Cowboy just decides to, well, mass murder the fuckers. Just tear them all down. There's blood, there's body parts everywhere. Just dead bodies of cops piling into that parking lot. Well, the corrupt sheriff decided to go after me and my ilk. I couldn't have him doing that. And after he leaves, the men that he was debriefing start discussing his son. And his son, well, his son is kind of a special boy, very special boy. You see, his son really loved Nirvana in its heyday, and when Kurt Cobain decided to off himself by putting a bullet in his own brain, well, his son decided to do the same. Decided to put his lips right around a revolver and pull the trigger. Problem is, a suicide attempt there didn't exactly take. And his face got sucked in. And, well, his face looks like a butt now. So, later, the lovely Cass decides to give him the name Arseface. And it sticks. I'm sorry. Huh. And me, Cass, and Tulip are all standing around the truck trying to figure out what to do. And I decide to use the word on Cass, and he don't like that too much. I get another visit from the good old John Wayne. He's trying to guide me in life, but I'm not quite sure exactly where he's coming from or how he gets to me. And then Tulip and Cass are clothes shopping. She even thinks to get something for me, but can't find it in the shop. And then we get a view of heaven. And all the angels up there are afraid that the Grail is going to learn about the escaped deity, whatever that may be. Who knows? And then, all three of us, we get all together, and we find out that, we find out while we're fighting that my good buddy Cass, he likes to eat people throats. He likes to just, chow down on people. Now, I don't think that's very godlike, do you? That's pretty much where issue 2 ends, so let's go on to issue 3.
So, the next issue starts with the angels talking about how fucked heaven is. And, well, there's a fight down on Earth with Jess and Cass after they all find out that Cass is a vampire. Yep. He even says the V word. His exact words. And, well, Cass splits from the group. And then we visit with Frankencop, who is visiting the parking lot after the group had left, where cops are investigating the bar brawl, or the parking lot brawl that just happened. And Frankencop decides to blow all the cops away. He just shoots holes in the motherfuckers. He leaves one or two maybe alive, but the majority of them get an extra hole in their body that they don't need. And the news of the massacre goes on to the radio, and we see the corrupt cop sitting with his son, Arseface. And his son really likes the corrupt cop, the corrupt sheriff, and he's trying to connect with the corrupt sheriff, but the sheriff won't talk back to him, and the sheriff won't say anything to him. And so, you know, when the news report comes over the radio, the sheriff's right out the door. But he doesn't realize that Arseface is hiding in the back seat, riding with him the entire time. Tulip tries to mend the fight between Cass and Jess. And, well, Jess goes into the bathroom to think things over, and he's staring in the mirror, and he starts to see fire and pain and demons and angels, and he starts hallucinating about the deity. And then he turns back to Tulip and he says, "We have to go find Cass." And they step out the door to go after him when they run into the corrupt sheriff, who points a gun right at their neck.
The next issue starts with little Jesse sitting in front of his TV watching a Western. And, well, John Wayne in the television kind of starts talking to him. He says, "You know, I'm always going to be there for you, partner." And you see a hand reach out of the TV and shake little Jess's hand. And then it goes back to the present. Whew. And, well, while the corrupt sheriff has a gun pointed to the preacher's neck, Tulip decides to take her gun and point it at the corrupt sheriff. And they have sort of a Mexican standoff there. And then, well, we see Cass driving off in the truck, and he decides that he needs to go back, and he needs to help Jesse and Tulip. And he turns the truck around and starts heading back. Right as he does, Frankencowboy shows up to the fight. And Frankencowboy and the sheriff are fighting together. And as they're fighting, Cass sees him in the truck, and he smacks right into Frankencowboy. But Frankencowboy doesn't even move, and Cass goes flying out the windshield. And, well, after Arseface is peeking out from behind one of the windows in the corrupt sheriff's car, he comes running, screaming, "Don't hurt my dad! Don't hurt my dad!" And, well, you know, Jess uses the word of God to calm everyone down. And he says to Frankencowboy, "You know, I know you know what's going on. So, you know, I know who you know I need to talk to. So, call him now." And this deity shows up in the clouds and pretty much tells Jess that God quit heaven. And, well, everyone starts going their separate ways. And I don't know if this was intentional or if it was completely by accident, but as everyone's leaving their separate ways, the sheriff says, you know, I'm gonna go, and Jess says, no, you can go fuck yourself. And he uses a word when he says it. So, it flashes like a couple hours into the future. And you see this ambulance, and it's loading the sheriff in there. And they're talking about it's the damnedest thing. The guy actually chopped off his wiener and shoved it up his ass. And, well, the sheriff's sitting in the ambulance, and he calls for Arseface. And his son comes running because his dad's never talked to him. And he says, yeah, what do you want? And the sheriff says, get me my gun. And the boy says, of course, of course. And he runs and he gets his gun and he gives it to the sheriff. And the sheriff blows his fucking brains out in front of his son. And his son just cracks. And he just screams to the heavens, I will kill you, Jesse Custer. I will avenge my father's death. Jesse has one final little speech with John Wayne, and that's how issue 4 ends. I mean, fuck, right? But I have some questions for you. Wow, right? I mean, this is only 4 issues, and there's a lot of information to pack into those 4 issues. I don't actually have a question to answer this time because it's the first of the series, but I do have a question to ask. Since these chapters were all about kind of the relationships that these characters had, like the relationships between Tulip and Cass and Jess, or the relationship between Arseface and his father. You know, what lengths would you go to keep your friendships or relationships with the people that you have in your life? And I will answer that for you tomorrow. I'm not exactly sure which book I'm going to be reading next for my Pages Before Screens. Let me just grab a couple of options. So, I could read Pines by Blake Crouch, which is what the television show Wayward Pines is based off of. And I haven't started Wayward Pines. I did try and read this book, but I will read it again for you guys if you want me to. I could read Ring, which is based off of the popular movies, The Ring. I have seen the movie, but it was years ago, so I probably wouldn't think about it too much while I was reading this book, if you wanted me to read that one. Or I could read American Gods by Neil Gaiman, which I hear is being turned into a TV show. They just released pictures of Gillian Anderson as Lucille Ball, and they look fantastic. Well, I've been the purple-haired doofus, reminding you to watch your pajama radius, and I will see you all in the next 4 issues of Preacher by Garth Ennis. Toodles!